Trump urges Israel to finish the job against Hamas amid ceasefire talks breakdown. Imagine a world where children are forced to eat sand due to extreme hunger, and their bodies are so malnourished that they're described as walking corpses. This is the harsh reality in Gaza, where a humanitarian crisis is spiraling out of control. Just a few weeks ago, President Donald Trump seemed optimistic about a potential ceasefire deal that would bring an end to the fighting, secure the release of hostages, and allow aid to flow into the enclave. However, his tone has drastically shifted, and he's now urging Israel to finish the job against Hamas. But here's where it gets complicated. Is Trump's sudden change in stance a genuine reflection of the talks breaking down, or is it a tactical move to pressure Hamas into a more conciliatory position? The answer remains unclear, but one thing is certain. The situation in Gaza is dire, and something needs to be done. The US has already contributed $60 million to food and supplies, but Trump claims that this hasn't been acknowledged or appreciated. Meanwhile, top US allies are taking a tougher stance on Israel's military campaign, with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer calling it indefensible. As the world watches, one question remains. What's the next step in resolving this crisis? Will Trump's comments pressure Hamas into agreeing to the existing proposal? Or will it only lead to further escalation? The clock is ticking and the fate of Gaza hangs in the balance. And this is the part most people miss. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is not just a result of Hamas's actions, but also a consequence of the Israeli military's disproportionate response. As French President Emmanuel Macron prepares to recognize a Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly, the US is faced with a difficult decision. Will it continue to support Israel's military campaign, or will it take a more nuanced approach to resolving the conflict? The answer to this question will have far-reaching consequences, not just for the people of Gaza, but for the entire Middle East. So, we ask you, what do you think is the best course of action for the US in this situation? Should it continue to support Israel's military campaign, or should it take a more diplomatic approach? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Netanyahu and Trump. No ceasefire for Gaza. What's next? The world watched in shock as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump seemed to slam the door on Gaza ceasefire negotiations with Hamas. The leaders' stark statements painted a grim picture of a conflict spiraling out of control. But here's where it gets controversial. Trump didn't mince words when he said Hamas really didn't want to make a deal. I think they want to die, and it's very bad. And it got to be to a point where you're going to have to finish the job. These remarks suggest a hardline stance, leaving little hope for negotiations in the short term, especially as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza worsens. Netanyahu, echoing Trump's sentiments, announced that Israel would seek alternative means to achieve its goals. This could mean a shift in tactics, but it's unclear what that would entail. Meanwhile, a senior Hamas official tried to keep the door open, saying the talks had been constructive and could have led to a deal if the enemy had the will to reach one. But with both sides entrenched, it seems the window for compromise is closing. The situation is dire. Mass hunger is gripping Gaza, and international aid organizations are sounding the alarm. But as France recognizes Palestinian statehood and other nations call for a ceasefire, the US and Israel remain firm in their stance. And this is the part most people miss. While the world focuses on the diplomatic maneuvering, the human cost of this conflict continues to mount. So, what do you think? Is this a necessary show of force? Or is it time for a different approach? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments.